Harry Potter star Rupert Grint ordered to pay further $2.2 million in tax. Former Harry Potter star Rupert Grint has been ordered to pay $2.2 million in tax. The Ron Weasley actor lost a legal battle with Revenue and Customs in 2019 and was ordered to pay the sum following an investigation into his tax return from the 2011-12 tax year. Grint had received a $5.7 million sum from a company which managed his business affairs as consideration for rights, records and goodwill from his work, which he claimed was a capital asset and therefore the subject of capital gains tax. But HMRC argued the fee should have been classed as income, and after the investigation Mr. Grint was told he needed to pay an additional $2.2 million in tax. Lawyers for Mr. Grint appealed against HMRC's decision at a hearing in the First-Tier Tribunal in London in November and December 2022. They argued the right amount of tax had been paid. But in a ruling, tribunal judge Harriet Morgan dismissed the appeal. She found the sum is taxable as income and said the money derived substantially the whole of its value from the activities of Mr. Grint, which was otherwise realized as income in the 2011-12 tax year. Grint was 12 years old when he starred in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in 2001. He is calculated to have earned around $30.5 million for playing Ron Weasley. Grint lost a separate court battle concerning a $1.2 million tax refund in 2019. Truong My Lawn, property tycoon loses appeal against her death sentence. A court in Vietnam has upheld a death sentence for a real estate tycoon after rejecting her appeal against a conviction for embezzlement and bribery. Truong My Lawn, chairwoman of developer Van Thin Phat Holdings Group, was sentenced in April for her role in fraud worth more than $12 billion. This equates to nearly 3% of Vietnam's GDP, a measure of national wealth, and represents the country's biggest ever fraud case. The 67-year-old was found guilty of embezzlement, bribery, and violations of banking rules following a month-long trial. The consequences Lawn caused are unprecedented in the history of litigation, and the amount of money embezzled is unprecedentedly large and unrecoverable. The defendant's actions have affected many aspects of society, the financial market, the economy, the prosecution said, as reported by Vietnam Net. Lawn and her accomplices were charged with illegally controlling the Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank (SCB) between 2012 and 2022 to siphon funds through thousands of ghost companies and by bribing government officials. From early 2018 to October 2022, when the state bailed out SCB after a run on its deposits, Lawn appropriated large sums by arranging unlawful loans to shell companies, investigators said. Vietnamese news outlet VN Express reported if Lawn can return 3/4 of the money embezzled while on death row, it is possible the sentence could be commuted to life imprisonment. Reuters news agency has reported it has seen documents that show Vietnam's central bank had, as of April, pumped $24 billion into the SCB in an unprecedented rescue. In her mitigation, Lan's lawyers argued she has admitted guilt, shown remorse, and paid back part of the money, state media reported. Lawn still has the right to request a review. "13 women found guilty for selling babies for cash in Cambodia." 13 women have been sentenced to 4 years for acting as surrogates in a ring selling babies for cash in Cambodia. The women, all from the Philippines, were found guilty of selling, buying or exchanging a person for cross-border transfer, the Candal Provincial Court said on Monday, as they planned to sell their babies to foreign clients. 2 years of each sentence were suspended, meaning they won't have to be served unless the women are found guilty of another crime. The sentencing came after police found 20 Filipinos and 4 Vietnamese women when they raided a villa in Candal Province, near the capital Phnom Penh, in late September. Anyone who wasn't pregnant was deported, leaving the 13 women who have now been sentenced. The women were placed under care at a hospital at the time, but warned by the authorities that they would be prosecuted after giving birth. Court spokesperson So Saran has refused to comment on whether any of the women are still pregnant or what will happen to the children. Cambodia's Interior Ministry said in October it had not identified the ringleaders, but added it believed the pregnant women conspired with the organizers rather than falling victim to them. He said the women can appeal against the verdict. Developing countries such as Cambodia have been popular for surrogacy because costs are much lower compared to developed countries like the United States and Australia, where surrogate services can cost the equivalent of around $152,000. Cambodia, which the U.S. says does not meet the minimum expected standards for the elimination of human trafficking, updated its laws in 2016 to ban commercial surrogacy. Oceans may never have existed on Venus, says new research. Venus may never have hosted oceans on its surface, according to new research. Despite a scientific debate raging for years over the history of Venus and whether it ever held liquid oceans, new research by astrochemists from the University of Cambridge suggests it has always been dry. Two very different histories of water on Venus have been proposed, one where Venus had a temperate climate for billions of years with surface liquid water and the other where a hot early Venus was never able to condense surface liquid water, said the report's authors Teresa Constantinou, Oliver Shortall and Paul B. Rimmer. Ms. Constantinou and her colleagues modeled the current chemical makeup of Venus' atmosphere and discovered the planet has never been liquid water habitable. Venus today is a hellish world, suggests NASA. It has an average surface temperature of around 465 C, 869 F, and a pressure 90 times greater than Earth's at sea level, as well as being permanently shrouded in thick, toxic clouds of sulfuric acid. In their study, the scientists found the planet's interior lacks hydrogen, which suggests it is much drier than Earth's interior. Instead of condensing on the planet's surface, any water in Venus' atmosphere likely remained as steam, suggests the research. Back in 2016, a team of scientists working for NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York suggested the planet may once have been habitable. The team used a computer model similar to the type used to predict climate change on Earth. Many of the same tools we use to model climate change on Earth can be adapted to study climates on other planets, both past and present, said Michael Way at the time, a researcher at GISS and the paper's lead author. These results show ancient Venus may have been a very different place than it is today. Another study, by researchers at the University of Chicago last year, suggested that Venus has been uninhabitable for over 70% of its history, 4 times longer than some previous estimates. Burberry launches high court action against discount retailer B&M. Luxury fashion brand Burberry has taken legal action against discount retailer B&M over potential trademark breaches. Burberry launched high court proceedings on Monday under trademark grounds, indicating concerns the discount chain was falsely representing their goods as Burberry. Neither Burberry nor B&M gave further detail. B&M has sold a line of Burberry-branded dog bowls, toys, animal blankets, mats, and beds this year. The items featured a print with a beige background in red, white and black checks. It is not known if the claim involves the Burberry products. Both Burberry and B&M are public companies listed on the London Stock Exchange. Last year B&M bought as many as 50 shuttered Wilko stores after the retailer collapsed into administration. Burberry has been struggling in recent months with its share price depressed to such an extent that it fell out of the Financial Times Stock Exchange FTSE 100 index of most valuable companies on the London Stock Exchange. It had been a stalwart of the FTSE 100 for 15 years but is now a constituent of the larger FTSE 250. After senior management changes and a November strategy update, its values have climbed. Guinness limits pub supplies ahead of Christmas. The owner of Guinness is understood to have placed limits on pub and bar purchases of the Irish-made stout in the UK following a rush of sales, which has reportedly sparked some panic buying ahead of Christmas. The number of kegs that can be ordered from the Diageo-owned brand was being managed, the company said in response to a request for a statement by newspaper. The Times, which was first to report on the rush, said the recent spike in demand was understood to be linked to so-called ginfluencers bolstering the drink's popularity among women. A run of rugby union internationals during November was also blamed for stoking unprecedented sales growth ahead of the key festive season. The newspaper said that one pub company had reported panic buying in the market as a result of the restrictions, which was further exacerbating supply. It was understood that Diageo was working to a clear set of allocations on a weekly basis. This was to ensure that the firm had plenty of stock across its supply chain to avoid panic buying and avert shortages. A Diageo spokesperson said, "Over the past month we have seen exceptional consumer demand for Guinness in Great Britain. We have maximized supply and we are working proactively with our customers to manage the distribution to trade as efficiently as possible." UK supplies of Guinness, and its alcohol-free version, are exported from Ireland. A brewery in London that produced Guinness was closed in 2005. Production is currently still centered on the historic St James's Gate Brewery in Dublin on the banks of the River Liffey. A second brewery is under construction in County Kildare.